So I'm recording this after I've made the video, but it goes to show that I have been fighting for my son his entire life.
Y'all asked for evidence. Here is some. So the first little clip I'm going to play is the second time I talked to the detective, and that's responsible for his investigation. The first time I was beaten, broken, unmedicated, and asked questions, and he didn't like I was telling him how to do his job. This is the second time, and it's a minute and a half, and there's like one curse word in there. So if you don't like it, it is what it is. But this is how Livingston Police Department detective treats the father of a deceased child. So you have that.
Come on back.
All right.
Yes, sir, so far. It's my Friday. It's always nice.
Yes, sir.
Sit down. What can I help you with today?
Well, just been a couple weeks since the last time we talked, so I figured see if there's.
I thought you came in because we arrested Mr. Anderson.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm,
I
yeah.
did not know that.
Yeah, for making the handgun accessible.
What about his mom?
Whose mom?
Coby's.
Oh, no,
Y'all don't plan on it, or?
no.
How come?
Because it wasn't her gun.
It's community property, right?
Well, you just asked me a question, right?
Yes, sir.
So I gave you an
Yes,
answer.
sir. And I'm trying to understand that, like,
So that's
what's
where
his
we're
is
going
hers
with it.
and what's hers is his.
I see where you're going, right? I arrested him for it.
Okay.
It was his gun.
And if it would have been my gun, would I have been arrested for it?
Had you been there? Yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
Were you there?
No, sir.
Okay, then I'm not going to arrest you. I arrested him. You're not going to talk me into anything.
I'm not trying to talk you into anything. I'm asking questions.
Okay, feel free.
You know, your attitude fucking sucks.
Okay, well, if you would like to speak to my lieutenant or my chief, you're more than welcome to. Other than that, we're finished here then.
Then yep, I'll talk to him.
All right, I'll tell him. Step outside of the hallway. As you know, nobody can be unescorted inside here.
So I did speak to the lieutenant. He was a lot more pleasant. He apologized for the detective's behavior, but kind of made excuses for him. So he also told me that they didn't do gunshot residue on Coby or anybody else in the house because the hospital does it now. Which I don't know when that changed. So I called Livingston ER, which Coby didn't actually go inside. And Memorial Hermann Children's Hospital and talked to charge nurses there, and they both like, "Are you crazy? That's a law enforcement function." So it seems like it didn't get done. So I don't know if Lieutenant was unaware or uneducated or what. But that same lieutenant is also the same when he worked at the sheriff's office. He felt so compelled to pull over a car on his day off because Coby was hanging out the passenger window with his brother-in-law. Not seatbelted, not anything. The first thing I wanted to bring up was my license to carry. Here it is, plain as day from the state of Texas. Mr. Brewer, I'm here to zoom in a little bit. Your case has been dismissed. Look at that. So that's straight from the state of Texas. We'll go next with the survey. This is what it looks like at that house. I made notes on it. The first time he tried to go to sleep, that's where he was. That's when I brought him in. The second time, different day. Second time, that's where he was. Next to that shelter and that shelter and that shelter. And like, there's plenty of shelter for him out there. The road's on top. So like, you can't say that he didn't have shelter or that I locked him out. Well, my ex-in-laws, that's where they lived at. That was their house. That was like a 30 by 40 shot between their house and him. There's a nice little shed right there, unlocked all the time. But we kept keys in there, and Coby knew where those keys were.
And then there's a keypad to the house. So they at one point said I locked them out. Well, I mean, even if I locked them out of the house, there's still plenty of shelter. Didn't lock them out of the house though. Couldn't lock them out of the house because there it is. So plenty of shelter. Here's January 5th, 2021. This is just 5 months before they took him from me. This is an email from me to his dietitian. And I'm going to read it out just so you don't have to. Can you send us some of the possible side effects of high Phe levels in kids his age as a reminder, on top of the issues at school? Last night, while cleaning out his backpack for the first day back to school today, we found $150 cash that after an hour of lying, he admitted to stealing it out of his mom's purse. I realize some of it is normal kid stuff, but it is possible that some of these are related. But is it possible that some of these are related to his high numbers? So, the weekly blood tests, the high, the low, like if they're not right, he's not right. So you got that. Now something else that they said that was brought up in the protective order hearing. His mom blew it up. Yeah, it was like $20, no big deal. It was $150 at Christmas time because this is that night before school. When we cleaned out his backpack, that was like after Christmas break, and she just tried to blow it off like it was no big deal. I gave it back to her. That's how trustworthy I am. I didn't try to keep it. I gave it back to her. Got text messages for that. The story he came up with was that a friend of his gave it to him before Christmas break because he was nice to him. And like, come on. So getting ready in the morning, getting dressed, getting out, taking other kids to school, taking him to his school. He kept up the story the entire time until I told him, okay, we're going to call this kid in the principal's office. We're going to get his parents in there because if you didn't steal it, this other boy stole it. Because this just ain't something that happens. He finally told me the truth. And he said, yeah, he took it like long before. Because, we ain't messing with his backpack during Christmas break, but like he just forgot about it, apparently, and didn't need it. Like he didn't want for anything. This is her reply. Brandon asked me to review some of the things to look out for in behavior cognition with elevated Phe levels since Coby's had a lot of high Phe levels this month, noting some were due to his illness with COVID, which, by the way, Coby stayed with me during COVID. I had a new baby, 2 other kids in the house. Susie didn't want him to come to her house so that mom could take care of her baby. He specifically asked that he stays with us, so that's cool. In summary, I'd say the ones we hear about the most from adults who are able to correlate their high Phe with specific systems are the following: anxiety, moodiness, impulsivity, difficulty concentrating on long tasks, poor comprehension, having to reread the same page or email or instructions over and over, slower processing, speed of information, easily frustrated, poor judgments, making poor decisions that they normally wouldn't make when their level is lower, disorganization, and headaches. So with his high Phe numbers that he was having at his mom's house, because I started testing as soon as he walked in the door from her house for 3 or 4 days, I tested him. And then I tested him again the day before he went, or the day that he went back to his mom's house. Guess what? Yeah, his levels pretty much sucked at her house. But, one that I'm emailing his dietitian. Well, I'm still having a fight with the insurance company on the fiddle aid. You've done all you can do at this point. I'm waiting on the letter that names the people that denied the appeal so I can contact them again. This is me dealing with the insurance company, even though, because I had to do everything. She just wouldn't. On another note, do you have any advice on a 5-year-old that refuses to drink? Coby has gotten his butt whooped till he's bruised and still refuses, so I'm done with that route. I've tried everything that we can think of, and at this point, he's not eating or drinking anything. Hopefully, it's just a phase, but with him starting kindergarten next week, we have no clue. And that is August 17th, 2016. She replied, Now, this is my reply back to that. The issue that we're having is all he wants is to eat is mostly high fee stuff. We started the formula before food and are trying to stick with it. We feel like we're starving him to death, making him drink first. And now he flat out refuses to drink his milk, which in turn means he's not eating. That's where we're having the issues. I was the one that could make him drink, and now I'm not willing to beat him like that because even after he still refuses, so it's pointless. Do we just let him eat and hope that he wants to drink later? Do we stick to our guns? Do we need the tyrosine supplements? He's used to school and doesn't seem to be bothered. Doesn't seem to be bothered by starting a new one. This is him going from daycare to kindergarten. We're strong, but need some guidance and figuring out which way to go when he's this stubborn. All right. So this is her reply. You have to stick with your guns in regards to what you let him eat. But how many days has it been that he's not drinking formula and therefore not eating anything? I'm with you on sticking with your guns on the formula before food, but I wouldn't do that for more than 7 to 10 days if he's not eating anything, only because of the risk of getting feed deficient and risking those issues. 7 to 10 days. Don't let him eat if he ain't drinking his milk. So later that day, and this is 9:30 at night. Like, she's amazing. That's why, like, I have no complaints over any of what his specialist team. Here's an email from November 22nd, 2017. And this is just stuff that I have from when I took her back to court. Stuff that was handy, you know. I received your other emails and noted the details you're noticing. This is me, like, pointing out, like, oh, now she's trying to be mom of the year, but doesn't know his diet. And this is when he's 6 years old. I received your other emails and noted the details you're noticing. I know he has an appointment in December that I assumed you'd be bringing him to because I brought him to everything. But I also offered to Susie to have another one in the near future. It's just getting to be too much to go over and discuss via email or even phone with her. So I think it would be beneficial to meet in person if she can arrange it with her work schedule, along with the breastfeeding thing where she put work over family, work, everything was better and easier for her. She just didn't want to make the choice to fight for her child, just like if she can arrange it with her work schedule. Yeah. Like I said, work don't care about you. They'll replace you. September 26th is when of 2024 is when those charges were finally officially dismissed. Finally. You know, there's people that say that, like, oh, he asked about you just to see when you were going to jail. Yeah, well, this is what makes me think different, especially now. Like, hindsight's always 2020. It doesn't make sense to me, and I didn't know if this was him. I didn't know what it meant. Like, as far as I knew, he hated me because of the manipulation, and I don't know. I still to this day don't know. Had I known this was a possibility, then I'd have done something different. But on September 28th, he went through and liked, I hadn't counted them, a lot, like most of my TikTok videos, and they're all of my kids. That's it. I just recently got on TikTok, now that they're banning it like tomorrow. But all the TikToks I've got is like about the kids. And he just went through and like. It didn't, like, not long enough to like watch the videos. He just went through and liked them. So, like, what the hell does that mean? I don't know. If he messaged me, if he called me, like, things would have been so different. So different. But I feel like he was starting to realize the truth about his family. That's what I believe. Here's a message that my aunt, Coby's great aunt, sent to somebody just in hopes. I'm Coby's aunt. My sister is his grandmother. They had him 70 to 80% of the time and loved him dearly. They are devastated. I know she would love to talk to someone who talked to Coby or was friends with him. I would love for you to maybe call her sometime. I know it's a lot to ask. I pray your son can overcome this. I probably sound like a crazy, but we are still in shock and pain. Which, don't get me wrong, I don't fault her for reaching out. Don't get me wrong. But why the hell were my evil parents, why did they have him all that time? Just goes to show you that his mother just didn't want anything to do with him his whole freaking life. But by God, his father couldn't, and he wanted to so bad.
All right, so this is going to be a long read. If you're still with me, thank you. This is the text message that I sent to everybody before like years ago. Coby was probably 3, 4 years old. And we'd already divorced or split up at least. And like, you'll understand. And I'm going to read it on screen record so that you can read along with me. But this is copy and paste that I sent to, I'll just start reading. This message is being sent to Mom, Dad, Chris, and Susie, so there's no question on what was said, and everyone can read it themselves. Y'all should be communicating since everybody has been cut off from me for the most part. Coby's levels are not stable right now. His fee numbers have been dangerously low, which, as you all know, or should know, can cause growth and developmental problems. It is and always has been of utter importance that he receive the right amount of fee each day. Right now, he's supposed to have 275 milligrams fee and formula are looked at as medication. It needs to be spread out throughout the day to be properly absorbed. Susie should have explained all the issues we've had with him lately, with him refusing to drink his milk and the steps we have taken to correct it. What Em and I have put into place is working. So some of these people are no longer in the picture, but at the time they were. So I just removed the names to protect the innocent. What Em and I have put into place is working. He's getting all his formula and fee, and his behavior in school has improved drastically. The issues we're having now is that no one outside of our household is cooperating. It's frustrating because she has to be the evil stepmom, and I have to be the mean dad. Why does he need 8 ounces of milk, which formula, and 200 milligrams of fee at 6 p.m.? His stomach only holds so much, and he works so much better on a schedule. He's not staying up till midnight. At the latest on a non-school night, he still goes to bed no later than 9. So today when I pick him up, I only have roughly 3 hours to fill his stomach numerous times, bathe him, play with him, and have him read to me. I realize that you're grandparents and an uncle and may not want to follow the rules that have been set in place, but with Coby, you have to. This is the same kid that Grandma could no longer keep because he was too active. I'm the one that has to go to his school and spank him when he is totally disrespectful to his teacher. Susie, and I agreed on a progressive disciplinary system that includes a chart that Coby sees and understands. He knows what is supposed to happen if he doesn't have good days in school. The fact that adults outside of this household are not adhering to it is ridiculous. Em and I are the ones that have to make sure he drinks all of his milk before school, when all we do is fight him because we love him and want him to properly grow and develop, aka be a parent. It seems the rest of you just want to be friends. Susie knew his levels were messed up and that blood tests were to be done twice a week, seeing as the last 2 weeks that his normal Tuesday tests have been low fee and last week's Friday test was normal. A test was to be done yesterday. I provided everything she needed to do it when she picked him up from school. The reason for the test was to confirm that he is not getting all his fee in the 3 days before the test. The 3 days he's in y'all's care. His dietitian is seriously worried about this. If you didn't know, then Susie should have told you. If you knew and you failed to adhere to his dietary restrictions, then this is the final straw. Either everyone in his life gets on the same page for Coby's sake, or we'll go back to court and he will not be in your lives anymore. He is my son. He will be taken care of. If you can't do it, then Em and I will. This is not meant to be a threat of any kind. I hope it's taken up as a wake-up call because Coby loves all of you, and I don't want to tell him he can't see you anymore. The choice is y'all's. I'm going to spend the rest of the evening enjoying family time, so if anyone has any questions, save them and contact me tomorrow night after 6 p.m. All right, the rest of this is what I wrote to, after I took her back to court. We had to have somebody that comes in and looks at both sides of the family and all of that. I cannot think of the name of it right now. Nice people. They were at my house for 5 minutes, at her house for like 2 hours. So they could see the difference. But then
in the end, it's like, oh, a parent needs both, or a child needs both parents. So here we are. I'm gonna read this, and again, I'm gonna screenshot it. This is word for word, and I can show you the email where I sent it to the lawyer as well. But again, some of the names have been removed to protect the innocent. Coby was diagnosed with phenylketonuria, PKU for short, shortly after birth. It was found during the newborn screening where blood is taken from the heel while at the hospital. We had never heard of this before, but found out we were carriers of the disorder, as one of each of our parents were, one of each of their parents were, and so on. There is no cure. Before its discovery in the 1960s, people who were born with this and not placed on a special diet were diagnosed with severe autism and died at a very young age. His diet is the only thing that allows Coby to grow and thrive, and has proven he can do great things when the diet is followed properly. I call him my Superman. That's his kryptonite is protein. And you can tell. You can go back and look at all my posts, especially like in May was like PKU Awareness Month. I've always called him my Superman. Always. Since the divorce, Coby's diet while in his mom's care has been an issue. It has been a constant battle to get her to feed him and log his intake properly. It has been a battle to have her give him his formula on a schedule. She leaves him with people that do not properly care for him after acknowledging he isn't properly cared for. Shortly after the divorce, Susie decided to weigh everything she gave him. We had not weighed very much in the past years as we got used to measuring by each or by cups, etc. We were doing weekly blood tests, and they began getting lower and lower. After numerous discussions with Danielle, we decided to do 2 tests a week in order to show the difference between Coby's time with me and his time with his mother. The test confirmed good results while with me and continued poor results while with Susie. She refused to change anything she was doing, even though I communicated Danielle's worries. Then one day, after receiving Coby from my parents around 6:30 and learning that he had not had all of his prescribed formula and very little fee, I asked to have a meeting with all the adults that cared for him in order to get on the same page and add consistency to all homes. He also had a feeling Susie wasn't communicating Coby's needs with my parents, whom my relationship had diminished with since the divorce, to be explained later. We met at Catfish King, and even though the arguing over personal issues, agreed to weigh everything. Use howmuchfee.org and log everything given. If it wasn't on the site or a very close alternative, it would not be given. At this time, the test results from both homes began to be low. Things weren't weighing the same as what they were on the packages. I emailed Frito-Lay and asked for, at least on one Facebook group, for PKU support, asking why the bags of chips showed to weigh 28 grams but actually weighed almost twice that. The responses I received from both sources advised the weight on the bag was net, not necessarily actual. Eventually, we're going to back that up. Eventually, M had the idea to weigh other things and see if the scale was given the correct weight. A Google search for spare change showed that what the correct weight was. Placing them on the scale showed it was reading almost double. Communicating this with Susie, I learned that she was having scale issues for some time. It was then we all learned that scales had to be calibrated occasionally. I acquired more scales for everyone and a calibration set. Coby's test results improved at both homes, but damage was already done. We lost measurable growth on his last appointment. It's not known if he'll be able to make up that growth. There have been numerous conversations regarding what food to send to school, when and how to give formula, and orders from the doctor and dietitian to follow. She will agree on what to do to make it easier for Coby, yet will do what's easier for her. Examples of such include giving nighttime bottles of formula. She agreed we would stop giving him bottles at night, as he would not always finish them in the hour before they lost nutritional value. She also agreed to twice a day, a bottle before he wakes up to allow time to get ready in the morning, and one right after school. We stopped giving a bottle at my house while he was awake during his strike, to be explained later. She agreed to do it also for consistency. Eventually, she stopped. Tiffany cared for him after school one day and let him suck on a bottle for close to 3 hours. Susie laughed it off and said she thought she knew. Since September 10th, when Susie decided to go by the papers, which is the same day that I said we need to do something else. We'll get to that. We began a week at a time with custody. She had not cared for him more than 3 nights a week in his life. Because of this, I observed what she was logging on the site very closely. When she began changing what was logged days earlier, I voiced my concerns, as she logged foods that have always been counted as free. I knew his test results would be low, and I emailed Danielle my concerns. Then she began giving Coby milk on a different schedule. I begged her to continue what we had been doing all this time because it was for Coby's benefit. She shut down all communication and threatened me with harassment charges. When she moved to their current house, I had to take heed as the law enforcement jurisdiction became the sheriff's office. Their previous house. Like years, this is back in 16, 17 at least. Their officers obtained their own warrants, and if inexperienced or uneducated deputy took the report, I would have a warrant for my arrest with no warning. I feared this as a seasoned deputy once told a child rape victim that learned she was pregnant that she would have to have the baby before they could file any criminal charges. I know this as the mother contacted me for advice after being told this. Yeah, we're not all built the same. The low results began coming in. Danielle contacted me in order to come up with a solution as Coby's results with me were still in the normal range. After several phone calls and emails, Danielle advised that Susie followed the same instructions I had been giving her. The only thing I was asked to change was his intake of formula and quick track all the free food he was given, which varies from day to day. We had found that 120 grams in the morning and 80 grams in the afternoon. As Susie expressed she could not get him to drink that much milk in the morning, we went to 100 grams each morning and after school. So when you're talking about free food, like condiments, they're so low in fee, like ketchup, like there's a little bit of fee in it, but it wasn't enough to really count. Strawberries, if he eats a pound of strawberries, there's fee in it. If he eats one or two, there's not. So that's what we're talking about when we're saying free. Like his diet is something else. The things that she was refusing to cooperate with, including loading him up with fruit, sending high sugar drinks to school, not giving any amount of milk before team sports, blogging the wrong foods, feeding candy bars for dinner, and others listed throughout this statement. After coming home from Susie's the first few days each week, he seems to be starving. She seems to only be worried about making sure he has his fee for the day and not making sure he is full and satisfied. There have been numerous days where he's been given candy that had more feed than his entire dinner. If she had given him a lower fee dinner with his special foods than the candy, it wouldn't be an issue. But like literally, and I've got all the logs where she's giving him Kit Kats and Snickers and Milky Ways, and not even like I'd have to look it up because I hadn't looked at it in so long. But the little fun size, he's never before the day that he made his outcry, quote unquote, he had a full size Snickers bar. That was the last day she logged, and that was the first full size candy bar he'd ever had in his life. After the first few appointments, when in the beginning, when he was born, Susie stopped going to his specialist appointments. They were scheduled 6 months in the future, but she declined to go. I would invite her daughters or my family. Sometimes they went, most times they did not. I would speak to the doctors and dietitians and relay the information to Susie and ask that she relayed it to my parents. I was also put in charge of the blood tests at home, as in the beginning they hurt him. Every week I performed the tests and even filled in the copies with my name, as I was always the one to do it. The strike I mentioned was a period in time when Coby refused to drink his milk at all. He stated he liked it, but didn't know why he didn't want to drink it. We tried numerous ways to get him to drink it, including mixing it with food and making ice cream with it. All failed. We were provided samples by Danielle of numerous types, but he didn't like them. He started drinking a chocolate flavored one, and then we even got a case through the insurance company, but that didn't last. The only thing that eventually worked was spanking him. He would be given a time frame of 20 minutes or so to drink 4 ounces. You're talking like a half a cup of formula. When he failed to come close to finish it, he received a spanking and was given additional time. If he failed to finish it, he was spanked again and given more time. I was summoned to both Susie's and my parents' house to make him drink his milk. Danielle provided many alternatives that included rewards and such, and we tried that and failed. The last resort was to starve him for up to 7 days until he drank his milk. We knew this would be hard for him and us and could cause permanent development issues, so we continued the spanking route. Eventually, he returned to his original formula and there was no more fight. I got a cup and a straw, and hey, he drank it without a problem. He now drinks 5 ounces in less than 10 minutes every day, and because of the strike, we had to go to formula before food. It was very common with the treatment of PKU, but until this, he'd always drank his prescribed amount plus some without an issue. There's one instance since then that he failed to drink it and receive spankings. His butt was bruised as of a result of this. Susie and I discussed it via text and more in person when he was ready to come back earlier than scheduled to my house. We both agreed it was a last resort, not abuse. It was not the amount of force she used, but the amount of separate spankings he received for not listening. We also both failed to come up with a better alternative. That's teamwork, but that's what she tried to use in the protective order hearing. Like, no, I brought those text messages out. Hey, he's ready to come back to your house. You want to come get him? When she lived walking distance from my house. Along with the blood tests performed at home, he had blood draws once or twice a year. When they did them at a specialist appointment, it was a chore. I had to help the nurses hold him down while he was screaming. After the worst one yet, I began having it done at a facility in Livingston. It's over by the hospital. It's a great place, nice people. Can't remember the name of it, but he can now go in and allow them to draw blood like a champ, using both arms as his veins like to move. As a result of these tests early on, we found that Coby's iron was low and he needed a supplement. We found Flintstone's chewables with iron and have used them for several years. Since then, his results have improved. Recently, Coby had stated that he has not gotten his vitamin at his mom's house for some time. Behavior. Coby's behavior has been a constant battle of all his life. I asked Susie before he was born not to make me the sole disciplinarian. My father was to me, and I had no relationship with him growing up. I did not want the same for my son. Once again, she agreed but failed to follow through. As Coby grew up, he had days that we felt all we did was get on to him. We tried every form of punishment and found corporal was the only thing that worked with him. One example of Susie failing to parent was when I walked into the living room and heard Coby crying. As I entered, I saw Susie physically holding him in the corner, something we had been trying, just go to the corner. I asked what the deal was. Susie stated he wouldn't stay in the corner. I told him to get in the corner and hush up. He obeyed. He has always been very active and very stubborn. Even while we were married, he was spanked. There were several times that bruises were left due to his anemia and his pale skin. We knew then and never questioned if it was abuse or not because we knew it was not. Discipline is not a fun thing to impose, but is necessary for proper development. Different techniques work with different kids. There was a time Coby was able to watch shows such as Family Guy and The Simpsons. As he got older, he began repeating things and behaviors he saw on shows like this. He was also allowed to play games like Mortal Kombat until he began hitting and kicking people, including at school. We outlawed at my house all shows and games that were not age appropriate and communicated that with Susie. She stated she agreed and would do the same, although she never did. She still allowed him to play Mad Max, which is a very violent fighting game. The weekend of September 10th, I had Coby. Saturday evening, we found him playing the murder game with H, the 3-year-old of our house. He became upset when H stabbed him in the neck with a toy knife, even though he was playing the part of the murderer. We spoke with Coby, determined he learned the game from a TV show he watches at his mom's, and explained it was not appropriate. The following morning, while everyone was watching Paw Patrol, Coby was overheard talking to H and using the word sex. We again spoke to Coby. We asked where he heard that word. He said he overheard John tell Susie that he wanted to have sex with her. When asked what he thought sex was, he answered it was when boyfriends and girlfriends were cuddling but not cuddling. We just stopped him there. That night, I asked Susie to call me when she got off. I told her about the murder game. She shrugged it off and explained it was a show, Criminal Minds, on Netflix, in which murders were investigated and that was age appropriate. I brought up the sex talk. She advised he asked her what sex was months ago, and the answer she gave was part of the answer she gave him. She added it was for grown-ups only and kids weren't allowed, and that it was completely normal for a 6-year-old to ask that question. I asked why she didn't feel the need to advise me about his questioning about sex or asking where he heard it from. She again stated it was normal at his age to be curious. As I disagreed with her, I told her we needed to talk about doing something different with custody. She advised she wanted to go by the papers and had nothing else to say. During this time, Coby was playing Little League tackle football. We had played basketball and baseball before this, and as he was so rough with the other boys in my house, we thought he would enjoy it. So did he. The league didn't have enough coaches for his age group. L's dad, which is my ex's baby daddy, L is the boy that was closest to Coby's age, and I agreed to coach the team even though we had no experience. We assumed the seasoned coaches would help out. Boy, were we wrong. About halfway through the season, he decided it wasn't for him. As he had made an obligation to his team, he was told he would have to finish the season. L was the same way, but he hated it even more. The rule was the same for him. Susie disagreed, but brought him on her days until the last few weeks. This is a traveling league, and many games were out of town on Saturdays. As I'm scheduled to work every Saturday, I missed some games, but not all. And that was we talked about that in the previous video. The games and practices Susie brought him to, he refused to practice or play. He would show off for her by dancing or playing around. He would do something and then look at her for approval. The last game she took him to was the worst. According to other parents, Coby was dancing for the other team's sidelines and laying down on the field to the point the referees had to pick him up and get him out of the way. N, which is L's dad, told him to go sit by his mom as he wasn't playing anyway. Susie asked why he got thrown out of the game, like she's not even paying attention to him. The other parents told her that he wasn't playing anyway and was actually hindering. This would have been the first and only game we may have won had Coby been focused. The other parents added that he would not have been acting like that had I been there, as I redirect him. Susie never does. After that game, whether he was with her or not, she didn't come back. She failed to bring him to practices and games. She didn't even come back to watch him while he was with me. She was too embarrassed, just like the field day, to be explained later, but I explained in that previous video. Throughout the years, my parents began believing Coby needed medication for ADHD. He was uncontrollable while with him and thoroughly embarrassed them on a trip to visit his great-grandmother. The one time my parents took him when he was younger, my mom said, thoroughly embarrassed. I asked Joyce what she believed, and I say Joyce. So Joyce runs a local daycare. Awesome lady, awesome daycare. Loved her, it's amazing. I asked Joyce what she thought as she deals with kids for a living. She believed Coby needed structure and discipline. She asked to work with him full time, and she would verify her belief, and I let her do so. During basketball, my mother and I got into an argument regarding her comments regarding his needs for medication. While sitting on the bench, Coby would lose focus and act silly. I would yell from the stands for him to get into the game, and he would. So let me back up. It was bad. She would just sit up, that poor boy needs medication because he's out there, he's having a good time. He's doing the same stuff as the kids were. But anyway, I can now say from experience coaching kids, Coby acted no differently than other kids on his team. Actually, he acted better than most, at least when I was there. I had to get on to other children, younger and older, more than I did Coby. Many times, he is with my parents. They are the only ones that log soda. He cannot be filled with sugar and caffeine to be told he needs medication for his behavior by his parent or grandparents. All right, get back to this. School. As Coby got older, he became too much for my mom to care for. She wanted him to sit in his bouncer and watch TV all day, and that was just not him. He was enrolled in All God's Children daycare operated by Joyce Bogan, as their hours were longer and worked with our schedule better. Just like now, if I was off, he would stay home. If I was working, he would go for the day. Just like now, I did all the communicating with the school. We were afraid that due to his PKU, and when I say we, I mean him and I. Susie was not a we at this point. We were afraid that due to his PKU, they would feed him something he wasn't supposed to have or something. I made sure I communicated with the daycare on a regular basis, and we sent his lunch and formula with him. They worked on preschool things, and soon he was counting and writing. He was turning out to be very smart. As we believed he was still too active, along with his diet, he was enrolled in the Montessori school for kindergarten. They allow more freedom to move as long as the kids are working. He would not have to sit at a desk all day. If he chose to lay on the floor and do his work, he'd be able to. He's also allowed to learn at his own pace at his school, which fights boredom and behavioral problems, and I know this from my own childhood. We still sent most of his lunch, but agreed there would be no need to send fruit as the school serves it daily. It also provides a sense of normalcy when the other kids are self-serving that he can also. So it was like family style. It was like a big bowl of spaghetti, and the kids would make their own plate and like a bowl of fruit, and they'd get their own stuff. Well, he couldn't have their spaghetti, but I would look at the calendar and send him with something like spaghetti so that his plate looked similar to everybody else's. and let him get his own fruit. They're providing the fruit. I'm paying for the fruit. Let him get the fruit. Why are we sitting? But anyway, we also had to work out the amount of calories and feed a send, as he could not eat whatever he wanted as before and was tired toward the afternoon. The school frowns upon sugar and red dye number 4, so after some trial and error, I found what worked best for Coby, which is what I continued ever since. As he'll be in school for another 11 years, we agreed keeping a similar schedule at home would benefit him. Coby was allowed to wear cowboy boots as long as we sent tennis shoes for gym time. The boots were thrown away after he got in trouble several times for kicking classmates, a punishment that he was warned of if the kicking continued. This is all Susie allows him to wear since going by the papers. She even allowed him to wear the same unlaundered shirt 2 days in a row. The school has a rule in the handbook that states tennis shoes must be provided or the student will not be able to participate in gym time. So, yeah. His kindergarten teachers, Miss Kathy and Miss Liz, worked hard with Coby. Great people. Love him to death. As it was a private school, he could be kicked out at any time due to his behavior. If Coby couldn't make it here, he would definitely struggle in public school. I would talk to his teachers daily, ensuring that there was nothing that needed to be addressed at home or otherwise. Many times when Coby acted out too badly, Miss Kathy would call or text saying they couldn't correct his behavior, which is something I advise them to do if they had any problems, to call me. I'd go to the school, address the issue, and return them to class. Sometimes it was talking, sometimes it was spanking, it just depended on the situation. One day, Miss Kathy texted me saying she had a problem with Coby. I was home, sick in bed. I want to say I called in that day, but I remember that's like the one time I was bad off. Called Susie as I knew she was off. I told her what Miss Kathy said and how it needed to be handled. The time was between 1 and 2. They got out at 3:30. Susie went to the school, checked him out early, and forgot to punish him. She then brought him to me early as she needed to go to the store and didn't want to take him as usual. She never took him anywhere. He was my road dog, my sidekick. I took him everywhere. She never wanted to. Coby's behavior called for a large amount of thinking and trial and error. We tried a lot of things to include spanking. Susie made a chart that depended on how many good days and bad days he had, he lost privileges or got rewards. She could not keep up with her own chart that was displayed at her home. After 2 or 3 bad days, I noticed he received a new toy, which was supposed to be a reward for 3 or 4 good days. She stated Tiffany got it for him, and she didn't even think about it. Miss Kathy and I eventually noticed that his behavior was worse on days he knew he was staying with his mom. I told Susie about it, and we agreed to test the theory. After an initial period, his behavior was so improved, Miss Kathy actually danced when asked how his day was. We continued to have Coby stay at my house on school nights and allowing Susie to have him for a few hours toward the end of the week after school. This was the arrangement until our conversation on September 10th. After that, any bad days resulted in Coby sitting at the table with his hands on the table and looking straight ahead. As he could have fun doing anything more than this, he hated this, and it continued to have good days, weeks, and the rest of the school year. Like that worked until it didn't. So, and while we're on that, I'll add too. So before me and Maddie and Carter's mom were like official or public anyway, my mom would go up there and she would apparently talk to her about me and other teachers and say how horrible I was. I would let him, Coby would pee and poop on himself sitting at the table and everything. Like, she's never been to the house, but she's going up there saying these things. And as soon as she knew I was talking to their mom, like that just there, she never talked to her again. All she got was dirty, go to hell looks. But like, no, Coby never peed or pooped himself. No, he wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom every 30 seconds, but no, he was allowed bathroom breaks. He was allowed to eat. He was allowed everything. Again, any free time, that's what you're doing, because man, you give him a piece of paper, a pen, like it didn't matter. He'd find something fun to do, and it wouldn't be punishment anymore. He hated that, and it worked for a while. So anyway, before his behavior was acceptable, a parent was requested to accompany him on any field trips. Susie was always told of the dates and times, yet only went on one and declined to allow anyone else to ride with her. The school asked for parent volunteers to carpool the kids. She just didn't want to. Em has accompanied him on 3 other field trips, and I've went on 2. Em and I both allowed other children and Miss Kathy to ride with us. After his behavior improved so much, the teachers agreed we really didn't need to go anymore. We still do, as we like spending time with him and helping the other kids go. On the last few trips, they even planned for some of the kids that had behavioral issues to ride with us, as they knew we could control them without a problem. Susie hasn't been involved much with the school or communicating with his teachers. She never asked how his day was when she picked him up. And this is like a very small school. You take 10 steps in and there's this classroom and the teacher standing at the door. You talk to him. The last time she was involved in anything school related was his field day, where all the kids went to Cedar Grove Elementary and played on the football field. Susie took this day off to help control his behavior before it was resolved, as I was on a scheduled work day, but was able to stop by and help and participate. I had to leave for a short time, but upon my return, I was met by several parents and teachers that told me how bad Coby had acted as soon as I left. I was told that a switch flipped as soon as he knew I was gone. His behavior was terrible. He was not listening to teachers or his mom. He ran away from her and hid under the bleachers. Susie finally got him out, but he was still acting up. Miss Lindsay, another great teacher, loved her to death too, and her husband has Miss Lindsay had to go get him from next to his mother and have him sit next to her in order for his behavior to be under control. This was toward the end of the year. Miss Lindsay had no idea Susie was Coby's mother. As I made my way back to Susie, she advised that she had to leave as she was not feeling well. Like with the football, she had been too embarrassed to return to any special days, including his kindergarten graduation or his 50s day. I went and recorded most of the entertainment on my cell phone. When it was over, Susie was upset that I didn't tell her. I advised her it was on their Facebook site and that I did tell her, but she would not be able to attend as her sergeant had already requested the day off. She continued to argue that nothing I said was graduation. It was literally called the end of the year celebration with a finger food potluck dinner. She continued to say it did not say graduation. So, and with every potluck dinner that we had, I always made special food for Coby that everybody else could eat, but there was never an issue if Coby had anything to eat. And you can look at all my Facebook posts, because like green eggs and ham, hey, he can't have either one of those, but I made something that looked like it. Even after September 10th, she has not inquired about his day, work, or behavior. At our initial hearing on November 16th, she walked right by them in the vending area of the Judicial Center and did not speak. Her attorney asked who they were as they were sitting with them, and she told her it was his teachers. As we were sitting with him, and she told us it was his teachers, Miss Kathy and Miss Lindsay, but failed to even say hello. When picking him up the next day, as per the papers, we learned he had not completed his homework, and several of the questions he had answered were wrong. When asked why he didn't finish, Coby advised that because he was at his mom's house. She fails to ensure he does his homework, and what he does complete, she doesn't check for accuracy. His performance this year has been good. He was named Star Pupil as he continues to learn at an incredible rate. He began the year in Miss Kathy's first grade class as it shares space with kindergarten. Miss Lindsay didn't believe he was mature enough to be in the upper first grade that shared its space with second grade, as her knowledge of him was his bad behavior the previous year. Many times he was sent to her class as punishment when he would not listen in his own. After the first week or so, Miss Lindsay learned how much his behavior had improved and how well he was working now. He was moved to the upper class and continues to shine. He's had a few bumps like all kids his age, but his teachers agreed that we worked so hard last year with him, he is not an issue this year and has not been punished in any way for bad behavior. As he continues to thrive in this environment, I have no plans on moving him to public school. So, a few miscellaneous things. During the summer, Coby was attending daycare at the Montessori school. As there are only 20 or so students total above 5 years old, the ages are mixed. Coby had become infatuated with a 10-year-old girl that was developing. He was being overly affectionate and at times would attempt to lift her shirt. The first time it happened, Susie and I talked to Coby separately about it. Coby stated he sees his mom naked all the time. When I told Susie about what he said, she stated she doesn't lock the door when she showers and he always comes in the bathroom. I had to inform her that it was not appropriate for her to be naked around him at his age. She stated she would lock the door from now on. When Coby attempted to lift a girl's shirt the very next day, he was spanked, and it has never happened again. This is in addition to a story told to me after September 10th by Tiffany's one-time friend Destiny. Just happened to see her at Jack in the Box down there across from Elbows. One of her earliest memories of Susie was when she was 6 years old. She was at Susie's house and Tiffany was sick. As such, she wanted Tiffany to stay in the living room with her, but she kept sneaking back to her bedroom where Destiny was playing. Susie was naked and writhing around on the floor. To this day, she doesn't know why, but she knew then that it was odd to be naked in the living room while your daughter has a friend over. When Susie moved into the apartment, we both knew it would only be temporary. At the time, it was Susie, Tiffany, and occasionally Coby. We knew Coby wouldn't have his own space. Sometime later, Ariel moved in. This gave Coby even less space in a 2-bedroom apartment shared with 3 grown women. Coby's bed was the couch. Didn't even have his own space. Coby is very talkative lately. I try not to pry or let him know what's going on between his parents right now. He always randomly tells us things like when his grandma picks him up, he doesn't get a bottle after school unless she's out of formula. Susie does not log food sent to school, so when someone else, which is often, picks him up, they have no idea what was sent, so they don't know how much feed to give him as a snack and still leave enough for dinner. Until after September 10th, Susie never reached out to the dietitian. She was never interested in communicating with her before. She was never concerned with his formula or special foods. I always offered to purchase something for her house as long as she provided a list, and I did that for a very long time because, again, my son's not going to go without. For months, I fought with their insurance company. He is covered under the policy at her policy at this time, as she was covering her other children, and there was no additional charge to cover him as well. His formula has always been covered under the prescription per state law until her employer changed companies. As I've run into a dead end, I asked her to contact her human resources to help. She has yet to do so and makes excuses when reminded. Even when discussing it in October, she failed to mention yet another new company. I have ordered at least 2 shipments using her old insurance before she advised it changed. She has made 2 appointments with a counselor in the past month. She has declined to tell me that he's seeing a counselor or why she feels he needs to. I only know due to Coby talking about it and drawing a picture at school depicting Emily Havard, LPC. Coby watches YouTube, which, by the way, she cleared him. No, he's fine. Susie tried to claim he was having behavioral problems due to the divorce, and no, he was good with that. Coby watches YouTube videos using the PlayStation. He was able to watch Minecraft pornography while doing so at Susie's home. She failed to put any age restrictions on the account, which opened the door. Now he has his own TV and PlayStation in his room at her house, which provides no supervision as to what he's able to watch. Chris, my brother, he's now 48, 49, still lives at home. As far as I know, no girlfriend, no wife, no kids. But again, he was playing Jason Chris introduced him to Friday the 13th. He was playing Jason on the school playground, making the sound effects and all, while pretending to chase his girlfriends on the playground with an imaginary machete at a private school. He has an Uncharted 4 poster in his room and plays it with Chris, apparently. The game is rated for teens, as there is violence and strong language. I began talking to M. This is new relationships. I began talking to M shortly after Susie moved out. We did not make it public until after the divorce was final out of respect for Susie. I advised her I started talking to somebody in case Coby mentioned her name. We also felt it was best to ease Coby into meeting M and her 3 boys also. I didn't see M for some time when I had Coby. Then it was play dates at the park or at our homes. After 8 months of pure bliss and literally hundreds of texts per day, we decided to move in together, not because it would be easier or a financial gain, but because we wanted to. We chose to keep my house as the location was more peaceful and the house was more than big enough for everyone. The boys chose their sleeping arrangements themselves. No one wanted their own room, including young Hunter, who was putting his own to begin with. M has been wonderful for Coby and I. She took to PKU quickly and has made all kinds of recipes for Coby to try. She's taught us so much about being a good, decent boy and a better father. She has had no issues with controlling his behavior or his diet alone or with me. Susie has had at least 3 people she wanted to bring into Coby's life. I know this because we agreed background checks would be conducted on anyone we dated and wanted in Coby's life. She provided name, date of birth, and I used public paid-for site with numerous others. The first guy, which I don't remember his name, was going to move in while he received cancer treatments, his background including conviction of aggravated assault. When she asked him about it, he explained it was a bar fight while in the military, but became defensive that a check was conducted, or defensive that a check was conducted, and they decided to go their separate ways. The second one was Ron. Coby stated Ron didn't want to meet him, so he and his mom broke up. I asked Susie about it. She said that wasn't the case and that Coby must have overheard her talking to Tiffany about it. I advised her that it was none of my business, but to remember that he soaks up information even when you think he's not paying attention, and he does. The third one is John. They became Facebook official June 2017. Since then, they've been looking for a house to move in together. John showed no criminal history, but was best friends and roommates with an 18-year-old that had nothing but marijuana and half-naked women on his Facebook. John also had no signs of children of his own. He's shown no interest in Coby or his extracurricular activities. The only thing he attended was 1 or 2 baseball games and a pizza party after baseball season where his best friend was taking Coby and Elle into the woods at the park. The only issue we had was that he didn't ask permission, I'm sorry, of Elle's parents, both of whom were present before doing so, and no one knew who he was. Words were exchanged and no walk in the woods was taken. Like this dude, like this perfect stranger's just taking these, 5-year-old boys, like, hey, let's go for a walk in the woods. Like, what? Even on days Susie came to watch football practice or games, John never did. He did not go to the first court appearance on November 16th either. On the other hand, Em is very present in his life and activities. She attends field trips, special school events, games, practices, etc. She's also very involved in his diet and upbringing. She researches things to purchase and make for him and ensures he is raised with manners and morals. Our divorce was peaceful. Susie moved to an apartment just a block away as we agreed it would be easier and better for Coby. Dropping off, picking up, even forgetting something at the other's home was a breeze. Coby took it very well as we did not fight or argue in front of him. We really didn't fight at all. We both stated we wanted what was best for Coby. We made the change as smoothly and as painless as possible for him. I never talked bad about his mother in front of him or otherwise. We knew there would be differences at each home, but we both stated we would communicate and be consistent. We were at first. Then she began to do the many things listed. We agreed on the terms of the divorce, and she trusted me to the point that she didn't feel the need to show up for court. At the time, I never feared we would be at this point. Everything Coby has needed has been paid for by me until recently. His tuition, formula, special food, haircuts, doctor's appointments, everything. I have not complained and will continue to ensure my son is provided for. The average cost per month is $1,000. My family, the relationship I had with my family was at best okay before the divorce. I spoke to my dad almost daily. My brother would visit on a regular basis. Although my mother and I rarely got along, we were able to have visits and speak to each other. When we learned about Coby, we decided we would try to move back to Livingston as he was the only grandchild to my parents that I knew of at the time. As my brother was 5 years older than me and still lives at home with our parents, he may have been the only one. I found employment with the city of Livingston and have been there since Coby was less than a year old with no plans on leaving. When Susie and I decided to divorce, she wanted to let my parents know by having to sit down with them. The timing she chose, in my opinion, was poor due to my work schedule and extended family visiting. I wasn't involved because I was at work. She went and told them I have no idea what to this day. A few days later, Susie and I took Coby to my parents' house to show off his Halloween costume. He was Captain America. As I was scheduled to work the next day, I suggested we leave. My mother made a statement about alimony and child support. I advised her the details of the divorce did not concern her and that my son would be taken care of. She made a statement that I had not taken care of him so far. Since this statement, I have not had anything to say to her. Other family members, including my father, made excuses for her and made the statement, you know how she is. As this was a common statement, I decided I was not going to have the negativity in my life. If she chose to seek mental health treatment, we would try again. In my training and experience as a correctional officer and a peace officer, I've recognized she has an undiagnosed mental health disorder. Due to this, I've slowly lost all of my family members. My father did not agree with her, but had to take her side as her husband. On top of this, my dad became part of the problem with Coby's diet and behavior. Any conversation with extended family began and ended with these issues. As Susie continues to allow my parents to care for Coby during her custody periods, it is clear they still haven't grasped the importance of structure and discipline when it comes to Coby's diet. They continue to allow him to view violent and inappropriate material and fail to properly adhere to his diet. It is also clear that Susie continues to fail to communicate Danielle's instructions. They continue to allow him to have sugary, caffeinated drinks and still believe he needs medication to calm him down. Susie and my parents have failed to consider negative side effects of medication in regards to PKU. Coby in a nutshell. Coby was a surprise. Susie and I were both wrapping up divorces and were not planned to be a long-lasting relationship. When we found out about Coby, I was not scared at all. I knew that it would be hard work, but I promised Susie and myself that he would want for nothing. While she was pregnant, I worked 3 jobs in order to provide for the family. It wasn't easy, but it was well worth it. I went to every appointment Susie had and was present for his birth. He was and still is perfect. Shortly after his birth, we received a letter from the state showing his positive test result for PKU. We looked it up online and were scared to death. It seemed very scary, even though he showed no signs of high Phe levels. Once it was confirmed, we began seeing a specialist, Dr. Ruben Madelon. He has dedicated most of his life to PKU and was extremely helpful in our understanding and care for PKU. He assured us it was completely treatable with a special diet, and his dietitian would help in any way she could. When Dr. Madelon retired, Dr. Ray took his place. Danielle came in at the end of Dr. Madelon's career and is currently so very helpful. When Coby was young, Susie breastfed. With the amount of Phe in breast milk, he couldn't nurse, as we had to measure out what he drank. This meant pumping exclusively. When she returned to work, she worked night shift. Her supervisor refused to allow her break times to pump. Even though there is a federal law that requires a time and place to do it, she refused to fight it and ultimately stopped breastfeeding. This concerned me and was one of the first instances I noticed Susie did what was easier for her than was what was best for Coby. As it is her body, I could only voice my disagreement, but had to accept it. I have and will continue to make a point to be present for everything in Coby's life. His first steps, his first word, which was dada, his first day of school, everything. He has learned so much from me as I've learned so much from him. I have saved everything from the smallest moments of his life. I make sure I'm a huge part of his life and he knows that I love him. He is my heart and my priority in life. I don't do these things because I feel like I have to. I truly want to. The few things I have missed in his life have been his first round of vaccines, as I just started with Livingston Police Department, and since the recent events, this Halloween and Thanksgiving. Susie chose to keep him from me and did not take him trick-or-treating or make him a proper Thanksgiving dinner. It was so sad hearing him tell us how everyone else had plates full of food and all he had was a hamburger shaped like a turkey and mashed potatoes. He was so excited when he had Thanksgiving dinner at my home and ate a turkey leg and several side dishes before his own pumpkin pie. And I talked about that in the first video. Like, we cooked down the chicken leg bones and use his special chicken. Like, make him feel normal. Give him some kind of normalcy in his life. I've raised him to do things himself, not because I don't want to help him, but because I believe he needs to be as independent as possible. I help him think of solutions to problems himself and provide guidance for decision making. I've raised him to be respectful of everyone he encounters and to think of others before he thinks of himself, just like I do. Our home is filled with love. He is hugged and kissed several times a day, not only by me, but by M also. Sorry, M, if you read this or see it. Like, I tried. He's excited to see me and will run up to jump into my arms each time. As he is my firstborn, I had little experience. I've made mistakes, but I continue to put him first and try to raise a decent and moral person. As he is stubborn as I am, as I've been told I was when I was young, it has been a wonderful challenge. I want him to grow up to be anything he wants. I don't want him to think his diet restricts him in any way. I don't want him to think he's different from anyone else in a bad way. I want him to believe he can do anything, be anything, and accomplish everything. He is my best friend, but I am his parent first and foremost. I have to guide him through life in order to one day let him be on his own. With his strict diet, I believe structure and discipline go hand in hand. If he is not raised with good habits and good decision making, he will do things that can cause him harm. If he has no self-control of his behavior, I believe that lack of will filter into his diet. Well, that sure came true, didn't it? There is no cure for PKU. There are some treatments becoming available that may allow him to have less restrictive diet, but I believe he is too young to properly describe any potential side effects. I also believe, as there is no long-term research completed for the treatments, there could be long-term damage caused by them. His diet is manageable, and after 6 years of experience, quite easy. In conclusion, there are so many things that could be written down. This may be too many. All the claims I have made, both positive and negative, have evidence to support them. Email, text messages, witness accounts, etc. All exist and are available for review at any time. I do not wish to take Coby's mother out of his life completely, but after years of begging her to make better decisions when it comes to raising him, I believe her time should be limited. She continues to show he is not a priority and refuses to communicate with me about anything to do with Coby. So, this is written in, where were we at, 7, 8 years ago? I've been fighting for this boy his entire life. And the next thing I'm going to show, where even my aunt is telling people that my parents raised him, had him 70 to 80% of the time. She fought me tooth and nail, called in backup, tied my hands to allow the evil people that walked away from his daughter, couldn't raise his son to be to live on his own, and had no relationship with me. She allowed those people to raise my son. Yeah. Yeah.